Welcome everybody to our third social enterprise Mark Women's Network. And it's really great to have an international speaker with us today, Vicky Saunders from Canada, who's already started her day, even though it's quite early in the morning with her. So the idea of the network, for those of you that haven't been along, is a fairly informal forum to share ideas about women's leadership and to quiz some women's leaders who know either run a social enterprise or have been engaged in supporting the social enterprise field for quite some time. So I think it would be good to do a little brief introduction just to go round the room so that Vicky knows who she's speaking to. And obviously it would be very good if we had a bit of time to quiz Vicky about her extensive knowledge about entrepreneurialism, women's issues, and you know, her amazing vision for a radically generous society. So I'm going to just kick off myself by saying I'm Lucy Findlay and I run the Social Enterprise Mark, and I'll just ask each of you to give a very brief introduction, if you can, to Vicky. So I'll start off with Joy.
Hi, so I'm Joy Tweed, and 4 days a week I'm a lecturer at the University of Westminster, and we've been very involved with the Social Enterprise Mark because last year we gained the Gold Award, and we're also developing a Masters in Social Enterprise. Outside of my 4 days, I'm involved locally. I enjoy sitting on boards of organisations, particular interest in women's leadership, and being on boards. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy. Paula.
Hi, yes, thank you. Hi, Vicky. I'm Paula Whitehouse. I work at Aston University in Birmingham in the UK, where I am involved in supporting entrepreneurs right from pre-startup with our students to growth businesses and helping them to access finance. So that's my main area of activity.
Thank you, Paula. Aisha.
Hi everyone, lovely to be here, and thanks so much for SE Mark for gathering us all. My name is Isha Kirgamushabadi and I'm one of the co-founders of Supply Change. We help public sector and private sector organisations procure more from social enterprises and create more impact from their everyday spend. Thanks.
Thanks, Isha. Kate.
Hello everyone, and especially to Vicky. Well done for early mornings and all the rest of it. It's all good. So I'm Kate Welsh. I'm a serial social entrepreneur, I suppose. We counted the other day, I think it's 17 now, which is a bit scary, isn't it, really? And I run Social Enterprise Acumen, which helps organisations become more socially enterprising. And we do that through training, coaching, consultancy. And I'm also the founder and chair of trustees of Acumen Community Buildings, of which the beautiful building behind me is our first, and is this Centre for Social Enterprise, and also very much about being a catalyst for social action in our local community.
Great. AJ, are you able to talk? No, maybe we'll come back to AJ when she's found somewhere to park. Mariama?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, Vicky. I'm Mariama. I'm the Social Enterprise Programme Manager at CU Social Enterprise. So we are a subsidiary of Coventry University, and we support staff, students, graduates and local entrepreneurs to set up their own social enterprises. So we do that through training, consultancy and sort of one-to-one mentoring and coaching. Great to be here.
Great, thanks Mariama. And Rebecca, also early morning for you.
It's only 10 o'clock. No. I'm Rebecca Dre. I'm based in Michigan in the United States. I run Society Profits, which is a social enterprise that does certification for social enterprises, and we have the license in the US for the Social Enterprise Mark. And I also do social procurement alongside people like Isha.
Excellent. And Julie?
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Hawker. I'm at Cosmic, which is a social enterprise based in Devon in the UK. We deliver a whole range of digital services and support. Our main social objective is to overcome digital exclusion. We've been doing that for over 25 years now, and I've worked alongside Lucy on social mark and social enterprise support for over 20 of those years. So hi everyone.
I didn't think it was 20 years. We
Close
haven't
to
aged
it, I think,
at all.
Lucy. I know, look at us.
And Sophie?
Hi, thanks, Lucy. Sophie Short, I'm Lucy's colleague at Social Enterprise Mark. I'm responsible for the marketing and communications.
And last but not least, from the Isle of Wight, we have Sally. You're on mute, Sally.
Hello everyone, I'm Sally Ryan, so I'm working with Social Enterprise Mark while Rachel Fell is on maternity leave, so I'm covering the role of business development, so working with our would-be mark holders and also those existing mark holders through their year of accreditation and beyond.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone. I first came across Vicky when she talked at another event, which was being run by another women's network, so the Global Thinkers Forum, and I thought, why haven't I actually managed to encounter Vicky before? Because she's talking all the words that we've been talking, I think, and probably more, and very, very succinctly. So she's a serial entrepreneur. She's been and done lots of business startup, and I'm sure she can more than, she's more able to talk herself about her experiences. So what we would like her to do is to talk a bit about her journey as a female entrepreneur and some of the experiences that she has found as a leader, essentially, but also about the her great new development at SheEO. So can I hand over to you now, Vicky, and just to say welcome to Sarah as well, who's just managed to join us.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for including me in the conversation today. I'm not much for broadcasting, so why don't I just go, I'll just do a tight little thing and then we can talk. It's so interesting that you say, I've been talking these words. Words come for me after action. I'm always amazed by people who have all the words to say all the things before they do anything. And the difference between like having the words and actually doing the things, this gap I feel in the world keeps getting bigger and bigger. Everyone's talking regenerative business models, having never done anything like that. Paying attention to business being done differently is something I've focused on my whole life. I've been an entrepreneur forever, basically, a social entrepreneur before we had the word social entrepreneur. To me, the concept of like social enterprise or social entrepreneur, a word in front of a word makes me feel like we're out of balance. That's how I look at these words, right? The fact that you have to put social in front of enterprise means enterprise is like jumped off a cliff, way too much about just making money, not paying attention to where enterprise really needs to be to create a strong society. So that's sort of where I come from a bit. I have been obsessed with how do you create an amazing world through the lens of business. For probably 30 years, I've started lots of them. I've done tons of experiments around this. I've had every form of capital that there is, everything, including taking a company public. I think they're all designed to create more inequality. We're at such a crazy moment in time, almost between worlds, where we're seeing the old world dying of like just maximizing profit without caring about people or planet. Is like, it makes me crazy that we spend a penny on anything or a pound on anything, or a euro, depending on what lens you're using these days. That we put any of our money towards anything that is creating more harm. at a moment in time when we just have like multiple concurrent crises coming at us. It's just like the sky is falling in every single direction and people are like, can I get a 10x return on my money, please? And I'm like, what is wrong with us? So for a long, long time, I've been doing things differently for a really long time, looking at business from a how can you create flexible workplaces? How do you create a culture that brings out the best in everyone? I've been quite obsessed for many, many decades around how do you create the conditions for people to feel free and to thrive and to bring their gifts into the world? Like I think of, could you create an economy that does that, creates the conditions for people to really bring their gifts? And a lot of the insight from that came from when I was in Prague, in Europe, right after the wall fell down. I was there at that moment. And I was completely transformed by the experience of being in a society where everybody was dreaming about what they were going to do now that they were free for the first time. It was a super intoxicating experience where, one day there's a tank in your country and no one's free. The next day it drives away and everybody flips a switch. The whole society flipped a switch and started acting differently. And I'm like, oh, if you can find the right metaphor, you can wake people up to doing things differently. So I've sort of been wondering how you create the conditions for all of us to realize we have everything that we need to create a much better world than we're living in.
Vicky, you've gone on mute.
How weird is that? Okay.
Yeah.
The universe did not want me to say whatever I was going to say. So for me, the thing is, we have everything that we need. There's an abundance of everything. It's just badly distributed. I mean, I kind of think of it the same way as you think about food. Like I think most people would agree, there is enough food grown on the planet to feed everybody. It's just badly distributed. And I think about that about all resources on the planet. There is enough for everyone. It's just badly organized, how we get it to people. And we've decided that this idea of winner takes all, this mantra of winning the market and accumulating is what we're going to pay attention to. That, for the historians in the room, is about a 400-year-old focus that came from Adam Smith, self-interest. And everybody kind of bought that and said, that's what we need to do. Like everything's about self-interest and go take care of yourself. And Margaret Thatcher put the nail in the coffin when she said there is no society, just people and individuals, right? So we've been following this sort of values paradigm for a long time. And we're at a fork in the road where we have to pick a new world, a new way, or we're not going to be here from my perspective. So I, got really sick as a female entrepreneur of looking at the data and seeing it kind of get worse each year. Like right now, 2% of capital goes to 51% of the global population. I mean, drop the mic on that. What do you say after that? It's like it's statistically impossible for this to occur without massive biases built into our systems and structures. And so if you go beyond even just the gender piece, basically there's a small group of people who have designed the world. It's a corrupt model that we just saw what happened during COVID. You can shut down the global economy and all the billionaires double their money. Like that's a game that is just over. So I'm throwing lots of pieces out to you, but these are the specs that have all come together for me. And so I stepped back about 5 years ago, right after I turned 50, and thought, I know there's a better way to do this. And I stopped trying to fit in to this sort of structures that I saw, stopped trying to convince people I'm going to go show another way of organizing resources to support entrepreneurs who are creating a better world. So at SheEO, we've taken this ecosystem approach. So we're funding majority woman and non-binary or non-binary owned ventures that are working on what we call the world's to-do list, the UN SDGs, and they're revenue generating ventures, because 99% of businesses out there are generating revenue. This like weird venture capital thing where you just raise a crap load of money and you either like do something with it or it all gets flushed. Most of it gets flushed. Is a narrative that is like for 0.1% of businesses. It's crazy that it's taken over the whole narrative. And so we focus on these revenue generating businesses, and we provide 0% interest loans to these women and non-binary folks who are working on the world's to-do list. And the way that we do this in each country that we're in, and we're in the UK, hundreds of women come together from that country They pay £71 a month to be part of this community of radically generous women. We pool our money together, and entrepreneurs apply with their amazing ideas. And we vote based on whether or not we think this is something that should exist in the world, that we're passionate about, that we could become customers for, that we'd like to support, open doors for, etc. So we're passionate about these companies. They get selected. It's a totally democratic voting system. There's no investment committee deciding on what has the greatest market potential. It's all BS. So we use all of our collective intelligence to pick these entrepreneurs, and then we say, how can we help? And they ask for support, and we help them grow their businesses. And as we're doing that, we help each other grow our businesses. We help each other with whatever we're working on. And we have a super diverse group of women who've come forward. You don't have to be a business expert. We've got students who maybe want to be an entrepreneur one day and see how all this works. We've got grandmothers. We've got corporate execs. We've got people who are running university departments. We have just a total mix. If this idea resonates with you of co-creating the new world together and doing it differently and sharing resources together, that's who shows up. We have funded over 107 ventures that are doing all kinds of amazing things, working on all the different SDGs. And we're in 5 countries. This model has expanded to 5 countries, and we have about 70 countries in the pipeline wanting to expand it. And the thing that's just really wild is we have been really told, you got to do this by yourself. So there's a whole narrative around put your head down and do it yourself. There's a whole narrative around not asking for help because, oh, I'm sure she's too busy, or maybe I should know how to do this already, or all the things, the voices in our heads. And the truth is, like, if I asked all of you right now, if you wouldn't mind a little experiment, how many people would help someone on the call right now if they asked you? Hands up. Yeah. And how many people love asking for help? Okay, there we go. 1. That's pretty much the norm everywhere I go. And we've been really, conditioned to not come together. We've been conditioned to not ask for help. And what that does is it robs each of us of sharing our gifts. I have a ton of connections. I'm kind of like one step removed from whoever you need to get to in the world. And I want to share. I have 23,000 followers on LinkedIn, and everyone owes me a favor. And I can't use those favors. So I want to share those favors. And so each time I'll say, please connect with me and ask me, go through my LinkedIn, mine it. If there's someone who can help you, let me know and I'll make the intro. And so few people do it. So it's like we have to do this muscle building to move ourselves from the conditioning and the sort of lie we've been told of there's not enough and you have to do it by yourself, to get our brains upgraded into this new future, which is there's enough. People out there want to help you. Please ask, and please give of your gifts as well. And so it's this cultural shift that needs to happen in order to create a better world. And as each of us give our gifts and get involved, we realize, oh, we can make a difference and we want to do more. And so it creates this beautiful sort of upward spiral of connection and deepening of relationships that starts to have us really thinking differently about our ability to create change. Pause. Thoughts?
Thank you very much, Vicky. I'm sure there are I could see lots of nods and people processing what you were saying. And I know that there probably are quite a few people. Aisha, do you want to start?
Yeah, I was just clapping, but I do also have a question.
Sorry, I misread the signs.
It was a hand, so yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much, Vicky, for sharing your thoughts. They're super interesting and I think really pertinent, especially for the time that we're living in. I have this question for you, but you kind of alluded to it earlier, but it's also just generally a question that I'm trying to grapple with constantly as I navigate the social enterprise ecosystem, which is that we inherently are working within structures of consumerism that you referred to, and capitalism with all its kind of pros and cons. And I just wonder if you have any advice to balance those considerations, because although we are working within the social enterprise ecosystem, it does take the best and also the worst bits from both the for-profit business sector, but also the charity sector too. So I'm just wondering how you balance those considerations.
It's such a good question, and it's so challenging as we sort of straddle our, you know, like I feel like every day I'm sort of straddling between two worlds. And the sort of trap I find is that I keep getting pulled back into the old systems, which are working perfectly the way they're designed to work this way, right? Not let everybody in, not have inclusive approaches, etc. Every time I get sort of pulled into those, I lose energy. I feel like it's not possible to create change. And I start to get down. And so a lot of people in the early days are like, oh, it's so great that you're trying to level the playing field. And I'm like, I'm not trying to do that. We're trying to create a whole new field. This field sucks. I don't want to be part of this field anymore. We need to create a new one. And the thing is, it's like, you can't incrementally tweak a few things in these systems. They are fundamentally rooted in a completely different value set than we need to go to. And if you, I'm sure we've all observed this during COVID, 5 years ago, I would go to New York and say, everything's broken. What a great time to be alive. That's like one of the chapters of my book. And people would be like, what do you mean? What's broken? And I was like, oh, that hurts my head even to think about the number of things that are like, let me make you a list. And a lot of people just didn't see it. And now, after, this far into COVID, people are talking about systems and structures and understanding that this is really, a rigged game, essentially, that if you're not an insider, you just can't get in there. And seeing how obvious this is, like the curtains are being sort of pulled back each day. And to me, I feel like we're on this process too. You still have to engage with the world we're in because that's where we are. And what I've noticed is the sort of more you can show a different way and then stand for what really matters for you and set your boundaries and your parameters. There is a lot of money out there that wants to go to improving, changing, redirecting, but it's all very programmed with power over you. Using power over you, capital is used to setting all the rules. And so somehow you have to get people to understand that the rules that they're coming with will create more of the same that we've got. And if you really want to create something different, you have to shift your rules and use your power with us, not over us. And so we've really worked on this narrative of power with versus power over. And it's, there's the risk lens and all the stuff that the capital that's out there or the policies that are out there are worried about. It's pretty hard to, even though people still do it, fight against evidence. And so I think it's like sharing your evidence, not making people wrong, getting people to understand that they were conditioned to operate this way, but the conditioning that they have created this world. And so we can't keep doing more of that. And so it's like, can people wake up through the way you're talking about it? I would be really happy to talk to you if you have a specific thing to see if I could help with the framing around it. But this is what I have built a muscle on over 30 years of like trying to frame it for people to not make them feel like they have to throw away their whole life because everything they've been doing is wrong to join your parade. But like to just gently step into, this is a hard thing. We're shifting paradigms. It's happened before in history, and anything that you can show that, examples that you can show for how it has been different before is really powerful because most of us don't have any history. We don't know. We're like, this is the only way you can do anything. Like we're incarcerated in the single way of doing things right now, which is really painful. I don't know if that's helpful, but Paula.
Thank you very much. And it's picking up on that really. It makes me think that should we be addressing this while people are in education? It seems to me that there's enormous potential amongst our young people at the moment and what they're interested in, what they're driven by.
Yeah.
But it concerns me that, for example, business schools channel people towards, big business, financial services. To be honest, in Birmingham, we've got Goldman Sachs arriving and creating 500 jobs, which is, celebrated for the local economy and everything. And at our university, it's all, you know, our graduates be able to get jobs there. And I haven't said this out loud to many people there, but I'm thinking, do we really want them to do that? You know, can we be channeling them somewhere else? But it's I think probably not only in the UK that business schools have the same outlook. And so I don't know, I wonder whether you've done any thinking about how we can engage with people really quite young and almost get them on board with the way that you're thinking at that stage.
Yeah. Yay. I mean, yes, this is where I started. So after my experience with Prague, I came back to Canada and started with young people. So my first company was called Kids Energy, and we hired teams of young people to solve challenges no one else could figure out. And so I've been obsessed with this for a long time, and I think this is what's coming next for SheEO, is a school, the school, but whatever that looks like, maybe not calling it school. Because yeah, the big challenge is, first of all, you need some examples. So we've got a pretty interesting portfolio of examples of people doing business really differently. I mean, we have companies that are, you know, a couple of years ago were focused on zero waste and are now doing negative waste. So a packaging company that takes pollution out of the ocean. In the Samoan area, they pay Samoan women a living wage to pull plastic out of the ocean, use that as the raw material for creating courier packaging. And then it's home compostable. So it's just like designed, the more they scale, they actually heal the earth. These are the new business models of the future. And the whole story of how they got up and running and how they were able to focus on this and do this product innovation has a lot to do with the kind of capital that they got. And so these kinds of case studies are out there around, and I think more and more of these case studies put into the hands of young ones in schools so they can hear about these different approaches. They can see people doing business differently. They can see people who are very happy with $5 million a year in revenue and not scaling to 100 million because they want a life and they want to create strong community locally. And so there's, I think about this a lot. Yes is the summary answer to what you just said. And I think we won't change things unless we do that. And so whether it's sidebar experiments, we've been talking about, could we start doing student cohorts of activators coming into our community? So they come in as a group, as a class, and they go through this process and they see a totally different way of reading through applications, voting, supporting how they can by amplifying these stories out loud, recognizing that they can make a contribution. You don't need a PhD before you can participate in the economy. And get involved. Like, I think a lot of this needs to be in practice, like the experiential nature. So I'd love to talk to you more about that if you're interested, because it's something I really want to get involved in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I'm just finding what you're saying very inspirational.
Julie, hi.
Hi, Vicky. Lovely to meet you. And thanks for your words were very well received and thought-provoking too. Several of us are involved in an event we're putting together in October in Devon, bringing together women in leadership positions and sort of helping them to be provoked and go out and think differently. So it's really useful from here to hear from you today. But I think one of the major, you know, I speak, as I said when I introduced myself, I speak as someone who's been you know, fighting the good fight and running Cosmic for 25 years and involved in supporting social enterprise development in the UK throughout that time, done a few international pieces as well. And it still feels as hard today as it did 25 years. In some ways, feels harder today. The digital, if I just speak from a digital inclusion perspective, the digital divide that we described 25 years ago as a project we were going to sort out in 5 years is now as great as it ever was, including in rural Devon, Cornwall, Somerset, you know, Wiltshire. It's the pandemic showed us just how deep and divisive digital technologies have become in our everyday lives. And I guess I'm coming around to a question, bear with me, which is what is the real sort of focus of support we can give to each other as women, regardless of whether we're I'm not startup phase, but feels every day like I need to start up again. What is that real focus that we all need to lean into in order to support each other, but also to keep the momentum going?
Yeah. Such a good question. I think, so a couple of reflections on what you're saying. One is, again, I am not a student of history, but I've been reading a ton of things. The book I'm obsessed with at the moment is Debt, the First 5,000 Years. I know it sounds a bit weird, but like, it's such a brilliant book because it's written from an anthropologist perspective, talking about cycles and patterns in history. And it's really fascinating. And so we are very trained and conditioned to think in binaries. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? And binaries no longer serve us. Even in the gender space, we're starting to see this, right? This is like, we need to not be in a binary around things. It's way too easy to control and create fear in binaries. And so both can be true. I think it is. So just data shows us during COVID, it's way worse for women than it was before, way worse. So you see retrenching. If you can stomach any of the US news, you're like, oh my God, the sky is totally falling. Like, so there's that whole piece. And at the same time, people are really noticing that the systems and structures we have in place aren't working for us. And we're becoming articulate about that. And we're becoming intolerant of that. And we are recognizing every day with floods, crisis, tornadoes, all the things that we're not going to survive unless we shift. So at the time where the old system is holding on tightly, I just see a whole bunch of white men hanging off the side of a building going, everything's fine. And where we need to go, both are happening at the same time, right? So I have humongous hope for what's coming because we're all becoming intolerant of the structures and systems we have. And so I try every day, I practice every day, not to pay too much attention to how bad it feels, because there's goodness coming too. And so to your last point, which is everything these days, the number one thing we have to do is get out of isolation and get together. What you're doing right here, get in communities, share what's going on, ask for help from each other, support each other however you can. This is going to become more and more critical, especially as the crises sort of ramp up, which they're going to get worse, the stuff that we're facing. And if we're not in community together, we're not going to survive. And then I think the one last thing I want to say around this is so fascinating. There's a bunch of studies done in the 60s around how people deal with stress. And we've all heard this fight, flight, or freeze. Everyone heard those. Yeah, it's like, oh, in times of stress, fight, flight, or freeze. Well, surprise, surprise, none of those studies were done with women. None. So a UCLA researcher went back into the studies again, and she found that in times of crisis, women had a fourth modality, which was tend and befriend. So in times of crisis, women come together and take care of each other. And just have a look at the COVID leadership around the world where women were leading. Bit of a different approach. So this idea of coming into community, every time I turn around, I'm just seeing this, like, find the others, get together, support each other, tell people how it's going for you, ask for help, and support one another. We're going to break through this if we come together. But if fear and isolation are the norm for you, it's like really going to be hard to break through this, right? We're like really every day, every headline's trying to keep us separate and on around. These systems can't survive if we come together, but if we stay separate, they will. Kate?
Thank you. And can I add my thanks to everyone else's, Vicky, for very wise words so far. Thank you. One thing I do a lot is work with very early stage social entrepreneurs who come from areas that have been very deprived of services. Areas I work in the old coalfields area of the northeast of England. So a real kind of sense of people having felt written off over many years, but people living at a level of poverty that doesn't enable them to do much more than just manage. So I was interested in your thoughts about sharing is, and people are very sharing of what they have, but they have very little, but they also have very a limited capacity because they're having to perhaps work 2 jobs, they're looking after kids, they're managing, caring for people, because there's lots of health issues and things. And around, you know, what experience you've seen or what you've got in terms of working at that level with people who might not be those that are more in a kind of a professional space or something of that sort, because it is really hard. We've got a number of people trying to get things off the ground, and we might be able to help with small amounts of capital, but it's really quite hard for them because there's just so much going on in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few thoughts. The model that we have, if you don't look at our criteria necessarily, what we're doing is we are aggregating local capital with a certain set of criteria that we have and collectively deciding where it needs to go for the highest and best use and the biggest impact, and then using everything we've got to support people with that. And so, I mean, this whole community-led, prioritized by the community resources is the way out from my perspective. It's not some like new policy the government's going to do and all of a sudden it's like that's not happening. All communities are different, they have different dynamics going on, and so it's looking to, and when I say capital, I don't just mean money, right? Like the resources that we all have that can fundamentally change things. Again, getting into community, understanding what the needs are, who's already doing great stuff, how can we support them? And getting these like small sort of giving circles, whatever you want to call them, together to start supporting is the answer, because the resources are out there. We're just not in relationship with each other. Everything has been in the economy / society. We talk about the economy before society these days, which is like wild, but everything is about a transaction. And everything has been monetized, right? To like looking after each other's kids after school. I mean, my mother, if she was still here, would be like, everything's monetized. And so if we can get back to this relationship based and being in right relationship and having our resources go to the highest and best use, I really think that this is going to change things. And so in many ways, what we've done with SheEO, we're just a demonstration project of you can do things differently and have wildly better outcomes. And it doesn't cost a lot. And so, I mean, simple, but not easy. Right, it's a very simple thing to do, but it's not necessarily easy. But again, it starts with getting in relationship. And we, one of the things that has been one of the hardest leadership things for me going through all of this process is looking like me and saying, we would like to fund Black, Indigenous, women of color. Because they're like, yeah, sister, sure, you got privilege. You look a certain way, I don't believe you. And we now 45% of our financial capital is going to Black, Indigenous, women of color. 11% of our global portfolio is Indigenous led. It's just like not even a statistic compared to what else is going on. And that has taken a lot of relationship building, a lot of listening, showing up over and over. And I think it's this challenge of like getting out of our bubbles, being uncomfortable, and building relationships will really change everything. Relationships. Rebecca?
So you're kind of answering the question that I had, but so how do we get more of the type of investing that you're talking about into places that are just so focused on this 10x, 20x return, but talk about angel investing or impact investing or, and it isn't really, they're just looking for the next unicorn that, I find that so frustrating in the States. I get asked to come and talk to accelerators or incubators about social enterprise. And when I talk about what it really is, and the kind of asset lock and the giving back of or the use of your profit for good forever, people are like, oh, okay, because we were kind of hoping that after like 5 years of all this effort, we're going to be able to like sell out, or, you know, but then on the flip side of that, I get people talking to me about not being able to get access to the money in order to scale, or to get themselves big enough to be really sustainable, self-sustaining.
Yeah, no, it's a huge challenge. And again, because we're at this critical point, it's getting like, it feels harder. Because impact investing is now just twice as hard. It's like, I want that return and I want the social impact. And I'm like, it's kind of crazy making. So, you know, one of the things that, again, our money is a core part of everything that's happening in the world, unfortunately, until it's not. We'll see what goes on there. But so one of the things that I knew was going to be really important with what we're doing is, you know, 97% of people writing checks are men. So they're picking the things that they care about. And mostly they're investing in younger versions of themselves or what they wish they were like when they were younger. And there's just this whole cycle challenge going on there. And so, you know, my insight around all of this is just that a lot of capital flows based on relationships. And most of the people with capital are not in relationship with the people that are solving a lot of these challenges. And how can you get them into relationship together? How can you get them to know one another? How can you get them to understand the challenges? And so what I've seen sort of unravel and like really build connective tissue over the last few years has been people with resources hearing the stories of people who are dealing with like systemic injustices. And they're like, what? And then how that person is working on it and going, oh my God, why is it so hard for you? And you're like, hello, been over here the whole time. You know, I'm not invited to your dinner parties, but if I was, you know, and then people wanting to use their resources, especially women. I mean, this is just a really big thing that we've been seeing, like in philanthropy, where women are mostly coming into dealing with a lot of the social injustices. On the investing front, it's the same as well. And so anything you can do to, first of all, stay away from the accelerators and incubators, because they have a format, right? They've got a blueprint on what success is. It's a formula. And they're here to like work the formula. That's not the world we're living in. Social enterprises who go into these accelerators, the first thing that they often hear, because I've been part of a lot of these, I've been an entrepreneur and res at some of these, I created some of these way back in the day, is take out your social. You're leaving money on the table doing it that way. We have a venture who is delivering home healthcare 30% cheaper and paying 30% more. VCs are like, what? What do you mean? That's my 30% that you're paying to that person. It's my money. And so it's, you just, and because people can't see the challenge that we're necessarily in. So for me, the short answer on this is where I've seen it all start to unlock is with getting people into relationship and understanding each other. We don't understand each other. We're not speaking the same language. And most people who have capital really want to do good with it. They're just conditioned to think there's only one way to do good, which is make a lot and then give it away, especially in America. Other places are a bit more open. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Vicky. I worked with Suzanne Beagle on setting up Woman Effect, so I've seen your name around. It's actually really nice. I've never really got the chance to talk to you at that point, so it's been really inspiring. And thank you everyone for the questions. I've just been sitting here really taking that all in, and it's a lot of what you share I really resonate with, specifically about asking for help. I think I liked how you put it, of actually it's a new habit that we need to start building, because it is a struggle. And I'd love to know a bit more actually about SheEO's kind of funding and what the application of that looks like. So for us, I guess those of us on the call who are looking at potentially applying for that, would be nice to know what that entails.
Okay, great, thanks. And I thought I recognized your name. Yeah, Suzanne's I love her so much. Okay, so we open applications on September 13th in the UK. And it's majority woman or non-binary led and owned, working on the world's to-do list, able to articulate that somehow. It's quite flex on how we look at that. Revenue between 40K per year and a couple of million, so in that zone. And that's it, really. It's very simple. 10 questions. our application form, everything is designed from an entrepreneur perspective to not waste your time. So 10 simple questions. Why you? Why now? How do you make money? What's the vision? I mean, it's really simple. Some people have told us they fill it out in 15 minutes in the line for an airplane when we used to line up for airplanes. Not that I would recommend that you do it in an airport line. But it's really speak from the heart, no jargon, no pitch decks, no attachments. Literally very simply. If you can't simply describe this, that people can read it and get excited about it, then too bad. Because all the jargony stuff just psychs everyone out, feel like you know, you're smart when you're really not saying anything. So we do that, and then everyone goes online in our community and votes. Voting process is so much fun. Everyone's always so blown away. Like, these are amazing ideas. How come we never hear about these? Because women are not mentioned in the press around these kinds of businesses, right? We're not celebrating them yet. So it's a really interesting sort of discovery. Everybody who applies gets personalized feedback. We just did our New Zealand and Australia applications. It's a really simple app. It's kind of fun to go through and answer things. And then there's always an ask from the entrepreneurs. We encourage them to make an ask. Activators can reply. I'd love to help you if you don't get selected. I have a connection for you. I want to be a customer, whatever it is. That information goes immediately to the entrepreneurs. So all through the voting process, the entrepreneurs who applied are getting feedback. So they get so excited by that. We had 2,350 pieces of feedback and connections in our 150 applications down under, which was awesome. So it's a really different kind. It's just like marketing your business to hundreds of women when you apply. All these people are looking at it and giving comments. Then if you're selected as a semi-finalist, we ask for financials and a 1-minute video. And then we do another round of voting. And then we announce who was selected after that. And we have, when you're an activator in our community, which I would encourage everyone to do, it's an amazing community. We have weekly calls. You come on, we go into breakout rooms, we practice asking and giving. We have all kinds of different speakers at different times. You get to learn about the different things that we're working on, the world's to-do list. There's a ton of programming if you'd like to, or you can just contribute and show up once in a while. It's very much on your own terms, which again is another thing that's hard to explain, because everyone's like, how do I be a good activator? You know, what's the way to be successful here? And I'm like, I don't know, what do you need? And it's very much kind of like on your own terms, go off and figure out what you need. It's not programmed, because we know that we're all very different and we all need different things at different times.
That sounds magical.
We have a hashtag SheEO magic, because it is. I mean, I was on
there you
call.
go.
Yeah, no, I was on a call a couple. I mean, this is the kind of crazy stuff. Again, like, this stuff is so simple. The way that we've organized things is so crazy in the world. But come into a room together, and I was in a breakout room with 5 people on this call a few weeks ago, and someone said, I'm looking, she goes, this is kind of random, but I'm looking for someone who knows a lot about freight forwarding to see if I can get better pricing for my shipping. Someone's like, that's what I do. I know all about that. And I'm like, what? Like 4 or 5 people in a room. And that kind of happens all the time. It's a bit of like sort of magic sauce, or because we're all deeply uncomfortable with someone not getting what they ask for, when we know how hard it is to ask. We do whatever we can to go, well, I don't know, but I have a friend who does, and I'll ask her. And so there's this real sort of community spirit of like wanting to support, which is kind of like, I grew up on a farm. This is kind of what we did, you know, uh-oh, the neighbors are in trouble. Let's go help. Let's take over what they need. And so it's a bit of that sort of community spirit, which has just been sort of shaken out of all of us in the way that we're organized. We just have to get back to that.
Super, thanks, Vicky.
That's brilliant. Does anyone else want to ask, maybe those that haven't asked a question to Vicky? Anyone else?
I was just going to ask quickly, Vicky, it would be really useful if you could share a link possibly to the application you were just talking about online, because I think it would be useful to share that with the whole group afterwards, because I'll share a recording of this session, and it would be really interesting, I think, to share some links.
Yeah, that would be great. So it's just sheeo.world. And when you're sharing it out, all of the questions that we ask are on the website. There's like nothing hidden behind anything. You can go see it all, you can hear you can see videos of what entrepreneurs say about it, all the stuff. So And I left my email here if anyone has any.
That's great.
Questions.
Thank you.
That you don't want to ask out loud, which is another one of our conditioning things. So, and feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. I'd just love to share anything I can to support.
That's really brilliant, Vicky, and I think you've really stimulated us into really thinking slightly differently, majorly differently. And I love the we don't need a level playing field. This what was it you said? This field sucks.
Well, you can quote me on that, but yeah, I'm not here to level a playing field. We're here to create a new one.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to quote that one.
Yeah.
Quote that one back when I next get told about leveling the playing field. I think that's absolutely brilliant. But it's been absolutely amazing having you on this, and I'm sure there will be some connections made. It certainly stimulated me to start thinking differently when I first heard you talk, and my immediate thought was we must get this group engaged with you, and I'm sure it would be good for people to carry on the relationship with you following on from this call. And it started to make me think, you know, are there other different models that are coming out? So I've started to collect some information about other types of finance as well, which I can send round to everybody following on from this call. But I think, you know, it's made me start to even say to some of these social investors, actually, the reason why you're not getting these people through the door is because you're not asking the right questions and you're judging people on the wrong criteria. You know, that is why you're not getting the money to the right people and out of the door. So thank you ever so much for joining us this afternoon, and I wish you, and I'm sure we all wish you well with SheEO. And
Lucy, sorry to interrupt. I just noticed AJ's got her hand up.
Oh, do you want a quick one then, AJ? You can have the last word.
Okay, the last word. Well, I was on my way in the car for the first part, so I didn't get to introduce myself. I'm at Powderham Castle, having grown up in California, and then married into this family and moved out here about 8 years ago into the patriarch to a degree that I didn't really realize existed, and have been trying to bring social enterprise, social prescribing, and all these things in. And Vicky, it's been so wonderful listening to your talks. I've listened to loads of your interviews, and I agree that you know, having isolated myself for years trying to fight against inside the architecture, that it's such a relief to hear women talking who have been through this and who are winning by holding on to each other and sharing wisdom. And it's just brought me such joy to be on this call and just feel in community. And so I just want to support that in the work that we're doing at Powderham. And my shift is going from, instead of banging my head against the wall inside the architecture, leaving the architecture and then finding the community and the new architecture. Like you said, there is no you know, we don't have the patience for it anymore, especially after these few years, and getting out of isolation, and yeah, no more tolerance for the incoherency of what we're spending our time on. So thank you so much, and thank you, Lucy, for bringing me into this. And I'm really excited to be hosting community. And you know, following your footsteps, and I'm definitely filling out your application.
That's great. Thank you.
Even just as a practice. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I mean, I just want to end by saying we are all needed.
Yeah.
All of us have a role to play. So thank you very much for your leadership and what you're doing. It's hard work.
Thank you.
Get it. Yeah, really appreciate all of you. So thanks for your time today, and we'll see you online.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks everyone, have a great day, bye.
Thank you.